The Galactic Council chamber was vast and cold. 12 representatives from 12 different species sat in a circle, their bodies shaped by thousands of years of evolution on different worlds. The ceiling above them showed the stars that their civilizations controlled, a map of power written in light. Ambassador from Earth sat at the smallest table. Her chair was lower than the others, a detail that made her position in the hierarchy clear to everyone. She wore the uniform of the United Earth Federation, and her dark eyes watched the representatives with careful attention. The representative spoke first. His body was like a large insect, with a hard shell that reflected the council lights. His voice came out as a series of clicks and whistles, but the translation device made his words clear. The threat in the Outer Rim territories is growing. My calculations show that if we do not act within 2 weeks, the enemy will reach the trade routes. This will damage all of our economies. The ethereal being floated above its seat, a form of pure energy wrapped in a shape that looked almost human. Its voice was soft and musical. Violence brings only more violence. Perhaps we should send diplomats first. These enemies may not be unreasonable. Perhaps they simply need to understand our perspective. The commander was massive, with gray skin and 4 arms. His people had been warriors for 10,000 years. He struck his fist on the table, making a sound like thunder. Diplomacy is for those who are weak. They will attack with our fleets. We will destroy this threat before it becomes a real problem. We have done this many times before. Other representatives nodded at the words. Most of the council agreed that action was needed. The only question was which species would lead the attack. Raised her hand, the council turned to look at her. For a moment there was silence. Earth wishes to offer our military support, said. Her voice was calm and clear. We have ships and soldiers trained for combat. We can help protect the trade routes and the peace that your civilizations have built. The compound eyes turned toward. He made a clicking sound that the translator converted to a laugh. Earth is a young world. You have been in space for only 40 years. Your technology is primitive compared to the weapons we use. Your soldiers have no experience with real warfare. How could you possibly help us? The ethereal seemed to glow brighter. Perhaps the human offer is kind, but the commander is right. They are the ones who should lead this mission. Humans could assist them. Maybe they could manage supply lines or medical duties. That would be useful work for a young species. The commander looked at with something close to pity. Humans are brave, I can see that, but bravery is not enough in space warfare. You would die if you tried to fight alongside us. It is better for you to stay safe and learn from watching us win. In 100 years, perhaps Earth will be ready for real battles. More laughter echoed through the chamber. The younger species, the ones who had recently joined the council, said nothing. They understood that speaking against the older powers was dangerous. Felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her face calm. This was a test she had expected. Humans had learned long ago that showing emotion in negotiations was a mistake. She had been born on a world that was harsh and difficult. Every human knew what it meant to struggle. Every human understood that survival sometimes meant accepting defeat temporarily to win later. Earth accepts the Council's decision, said. She stood up from her chair. We will support the forces in whatever way is needed. Thank you for this opportunity to serve the galaxy. The council members seemed satisfied with this answer. They began talking about when the attack would happen and which fleets would be involved. The meeting moved on to other topics, sat back down and took notes, recording every detail that might be useful. When the council session ended 4 hours later, left the chamber and walked through the station's corridors. Other species moved around her, ignoring the small human woman. To them, she was nothing more than a junior representative from a junior world. She entered a private room and activated a communication device. In seconds, the face of Captain Aaron appeared on the screen. He was on the military command ship above the planet, monitoring the situation from space. They rejected us, said. Though we'll lead the attack, we are to provide support only. Aaron's jaw tightened. He was a big man with gray in his hair and a scar on his left cheek from a training accident years ago. His eyes had seen many difficult things. He had commanded human soldiers in difficult situations before. He knew what it meant when the galaxy looked down on you. Did you expect anything different? Aaron asked. No, said, but I needed them to make their choice. Now that they have made it, we can make ours. Aaron nodded slowly. A small smile appeared on his face. You already know what I am thinking, do you not? I do, said. They will fight the way they always fight. They will use their power and their technology. They will believe that is enough. They will not expect anyone to think differently. They will not expect humans. We have always been good at being underestimated, Aaron said. It has always been one of our strengths. The galaxy thinks we are primitive, that we have no real strategy. They think we are children playing with weapons we do not understand. So we will show them, said. No, Aaron said. We will not show them anything. We will simply do what needs to be done. The showing will happen naturally. The communication ended. Looked out the window at the vast darkness of space. Somewhere in that darkness, the enemy was moving closer. The Galactic Council thought they had all the power, all the control. They thought experience and technology could defeat anything. But they had never fought against a species that had evolved on a harsh world. They had never faced enemies who understood that survival meant more than power. They had never encountered a civilization that learned how to win when the game was designed for them to lose. Thought about all the humans who had suffered through history. She thought about all the people who had learned to do more with less, who had found ways to survive when survival seemed impossible. She thought about the strength that came not from power, but from the will to keep fighting even when victory looked far away. The thought they would win because they were strong. The council believed they were safe because they were advanced, but they did not understand the enemy they had just created. They did not understand humanity. And that was why, in the end, they would fear them. Captain Aaron sat in the command center of the human military ship, staring at screens full of data. The information came from the forces, from the Galactic Council, and from Earth's own scouts. It painted a picture of the enemy that was clear and detailed. To the enemy was a problem of numbers and firepower. The enemy had 500,000 soldiers, the calculated. The enemy had weapons that could destroy targets from 5,000 miles away. The enemy had shields that could resist most forms of attack. The strategy was simple. Bring more weapons, more soldiers, and more power. Destroy the enemy before they could destroy you. Aaron looked at the same data and saw something different. He called a meeting of his top officers. They arrived one by one in the command center. Lieutenant Grace was the first. She was young but smart, and she had a talent for understanding how people thought and what they would do next. Major Thomas came next, his heavy frame moving with military precision. He commanded the ground forces and had fought in small wars on 3 different planets. Captain Lisa was the communications specialist. She could make 2 broken machines talk to each other if necessary. She had a gift for finding connections where others saw only chaos. Aaron pulled up the first piece of data. Look at the enemy supply routes, he said. The enemy's supply lines are well protected, and they are, but look here. He pointed to a section of the route that looked smaller and weaker than the rest. There is a gap. One section is protected by only 3 smaller ships. See this as nothing. 3 ships are too many to attack when you can attack the main force instead. Thomas leaned closer to the screen. But supply routes are like blood vessels. If you damage them, you damage the whole body. Exactly, Aaron said. They think about power. They think about striking the enemy's largest forces and destroying them with superior firepower. But humans think about systems. We understand that a body can survive the loss of a limb, but a body cannot survive without blood. Grace nodded slowly. She was already seeing where Aaron was going with this. If we destroy the supply routes, the enemy's soldiers will run out of food, ammunition, and fuel. They will become weak. They can then defeat them easily. The enemy will also have to split their forces, Lisa added. They will have to send soldiers to protect the supply routes. That means fewer soldiers fighting They will see this as a normal part of the battle. They will not understand that we caused it. Aaron pulled up another set of data. This time it showed the enemy's communication network. The enemy uses a central command structure. All orders flow from one location. If that location is destroyed or cut off, the entire army will become confused. They will not be able to work together. Soldiers will not know what to do. Commanders will not be able to coordinate. Major Thomas sat back in his chair. He understood now what Aaron was planning. We do not attack their soldiers. We attack the systems that keep their soldiers working together. Yes, Aaron said. War is not just about fighting. It is about breaking your enemy's ability to fight. They are strong fighters, but they are predictable. They follow the same patterns that have worked for 10,000 years. They do not adapt. They do not learn. They use power to solve problems. But we learn to solve problems by being weak, Grace said quietly. When you are poor, you cannot waste anything. When you are outnumbered, you cannot fight fairly. When you are young, you cannot rely on experience, so you learn to think differently. Aaron stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Earth's military ships floated in space. They were small compared to the fleet. The weapons were less advanced. The shields were weaker. But the humans who operated these ships had something they did not have. They had learned to survive through adaptation. We will divide into small teams, Aaron explained. Grace will lead a unit that attacks the enemy's communication network. They will move fast and quiet. Get in, destroy the central command post, and get out. Lisa will handle the encrypted signals so the enemy cannot call for help quickly. Thomas will coordinate strikes on supply convoys. Small teams, moving at night when the enemy is less alert. They will hit the supply routes and disappear. Thomas frowned. They will not like this. They want all their allies fighting in the same way they fight. They will think we are wasting time on small targets instead of fighting the real battle. That is why we will not tell them, Aaron said. Lisa looked shocked. You want to keep this secret from our allies? They are proud, Aaron said. They believe that their way of fighting is the only way that matters. If we tell them our plans, they will tell us it is a waste of time. They will order us to fight their way. Then we will all lose because the strategy is not good enough against an enemy that thinks the way these enemies think. Grace understood. We let them believe we are just following their lead. We let them think we are supporting them by doing what they ask. Meanwhile, we do what needs to be done. Over the next week, Aaron's teams began their work. Young pilot Daniel volunteered to lead dangerous missions, flying deep into enemy territory to map communication stations and supply routes. He was brave and quick-thinking, and he had the kind of mind that could see solutions other people missed. Each time Daniel returned from a mission, he brought back information that Aaron used to plan the next attack. Sophia was the chief medic. She understood that in the coming battle, the biggest killer would not be enemy weapons but human mistakes and bad decisions. So she trained her medical teams for every possible situation. She created new procedures for treating injuries that no human had seen before. She taught her soldiers to stay calm under pressure, to think clearly when everything was falling apart around them. The other officers watched as Aaron and his team prepared. Some of them thought the humans were wasting effort. The battle would be won or lost by the anyway, they believed. Why waste time on small operations? But Aaron and his people knew something else. Every small operation weakens the enemy. Every supply convoy destroyed means less ammunition, less food, less ability to fight. Every communication system destroyed means more confusion, more mistakes, more chaos. They were not trying to win the battle by themselves. They could do that. What the humans were trying to do was change the shape of the battlefield. They were trying to make sure that when they fought, they were not fighting against a strong, organized enemy. They were fighting against something broken and confused. It was a human way of fighting. It was the way humans had always fought, not with the most power, but with the most understanding of how power actually worked. When Aaron finally reported to the commander, he said only that Earth's forces were ready to support them in any way needed. The commander seemed satisfied. He did not ask many questions. He simply assumed that humans would do what they were told. He was wrong, but he would not realize it until the battle was already lost. The enemy arrived on the third day of the operation. Their ships came out of the darkness like wolves emerging from a forest. The sensors detected them first, and alarms rang out across the human fleet. Captain Aaron watched from the command center as red marks appeared on the screen, each one representing an enemy vessel filled with soldiers and weapons. The commander was confident. He had fought many battles. He had destroyed countless enemies. The enemy forces were large, yes, but the fleet was stronger. The soldiers were better trained. The weapons were more advanced. It was a matter of simple mathematics. More power would defeat less power. That was the law of the universe. The fleet moved to intercept the enemy. The battle started with tremendous explosions. Enemy ships fired first, sending waves of energy toward the vessels. But the shields were strong. Most of the energy blasts did not penetrate. When they did, the ships returned fire with greater force. The sky became filled with fire. Explosions rocked the space around the planets. Ships broke apart and fell toward the surface below. Both the enemy lost soldiers with every passing moment. The battle was exactly what the commander had expected. It was a test of raw power and firepower, and they were winning. But while the sky burned with this battle, other things were happening in places the enemy was not watching. Grace's unit moved quietly through the darkness. Her team consisted of 30 human soldiers. They moved in small ships that were hard to detect because they were so small and ordinary. To enemy sensors, they looked like cargo vessels or repair ships, nothing important enough to worry about. They approached the enemy's main communication station, a large structure orbiting above one of the outer moons. The station was protected by weapons and shields, but the shields were focused on the larger fleet far away. The humans used a path that avoided most of the enemy's detection systems. They had studied the patterns of the enemy's sensors for weeks. When they reached the station, they did not attack the shields directly. Instead, they used small explosives to cut their way through the outer hull. The enemy did not even notice. Their focus was on the massive battle happening above them. Inside the station, Grace's soldiers moved with the kind of silence that only humans could achieve. They were trained in ways that the galaxy's older species had forgotten about. They moved carefully, wasting no motion. They thought about every step. They understood that in a small space, one mistake could kill everyone. They reached the central control room and set their charges. The explosives were small but powerful. They destroyed the main communication systems and the backup systems at the same time. With 3 minutes of work, Grace's unit disabled the entire network that had taken the enemy months to build. Then they left as silently as they had come. Above them, the main battle continued. The commander did not know that the enemy's ability to communicate was falling apart. He only saw that the enemy was becoming less organized. Ships that should have been moving together were starting to move in different directions. Commanders who should have been responding quickly were delayed. The battle was becoming chaotic. The commander did not understand why this was happening. He simply took advantage of it and pushed his advantage further. At the same moment that Grace was destroying the communication network, Major Thomas was leading another attack on a supply convoy. The convoy was 30 supply ships carrying ammunition and food to the enemy forces. Thomas and his team attacked with precision. They destroyed the protective ships first, moving in fast and using the element of surprise. Then they destroyed the supply ships methodically. When it was over, the enemy had lost more than half their supplies. But the main enemy fleet did not notice because they were fighting for their lives against the. They did not know that their soldiers would soon run out of ammunition. They did not know that hunger would soon become a problem. Daniel led another mission at the same time. He and 6 other pilots flew deep into enemy territory. Their target was a radar installation that guided enemy fire. The installation was protected by anti-aircraft weapons, but Daniel had studied the patterns of those weapons. He knew the exact moments when they would fire and the exact directions they would fire in. Daniel's team flew through those gaps like a thread passing through the eye of a needle. They destroyed the radar station with surgical precision. Enemy ships would no longer be able to target accurately. Their weapons would miss more often. Their defense would become weaker. Sophia and her medical teams worked in the human hospitals. They treated the wounded soldiers who came back from the small operations. Some of the soldiers were badly hurt. Sophia moved between them, using techniques she had developed over weeks of preparation. She and her team saved soldiers who would have died under standard medical procedures. But Sophia also did something else. She made sure that every wounded soldier understood why they were fighting. She told them about the confidence that had almost cost Earth the chance to be part of this battle. She reminded them that they were not here to prove Earth's strength to the galaxy. They were here to do what was necessary to win. After 4 hours, the main battle was in complete chaos. The commander realized something was wrong. The enemy was too disorganized. Their weapons were missing too often. Their movements were too confused. This was not a normal battle. Something else was happening that he did not understand. The commander sent a message to Captain Aaron. He asked what the human fleet was doing. Aaron reported calmly that they had successfully destroyed the enemy's communication network and supply lines. He reported the destruction of radar stations and the disruption of the enemy's command structure. For a moment, there was silence from the commander. Then he said, "Send me the details of your operations. I want to see what you have done." Aaron sent the information. The commander looked at it in disbelief. This was not the way warfare was supposed to work. You did not win by destroying supply lines. You won by destroying your enemy's weapons and their soldiers. You won by being stronger and more powerful. But as the commander looked at the data, he realized something he had never considered before. The enemy was being destroyed from the inside by lack of supplies and lack of organization. The weapons were still powerful, yes, but they were powerful against an enemy that was already falling apart. The human strategy had made the strategy work better. The battle ended 6 hours later. The enemy fleet, now confused and without supplies, attempted a desperate retreat. They chased them and destroyed the remaining ships. It was a complete victory for the Allied forces. The victory belonged to the. Everyone agreed on this. They had fought the enemy directly and defeated them. But as the commander looked at the final reports, as he saw how the enemy's organizational structure had been destroyed and their supply lines cut, he began to understand something new. They had won because they were strong, but the humans had made it so that strength was enough. And that made them afraid, because they realized they had won not because their way was the only way, but because there were other ways. And those other ways had changed everything. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. This silence was different from the silence before Aaron's victory. This was the silence of people who had believed something for thousands of years and suddenly discovered that their belief was wrong. The representative had analyzed the data from the battle with his computational mind. He had looked at every movement, every decision, every result. The numbers told a story that made him uncomfortable. The human operations had destroyed 80% of the enemy's ability to fight. The weapons had destroyed the remaining 20%. The conclusion was inescapable. The humans won this battle, they said, his voice flat and controlled. Not the delivered the final blow, yes, But the humans created the conditions for that final blow to matter. The ethereal being pulsed with a strange light. Its energy seemed agitated, disturbed. I feel something from the humans that I have never felt from any other species. When they fought, they did not fight for power or for glory. They fought because something inside them demanded that they act. There was a rightness to their actions that went beyond strategy. There was a rightness to their choices. The commander sat heavily in his seat. He had fought in thousands of battles across 10,000 years. He had never questioned his methods. Power had always won. Strength had always been enough. But now he had to look at the universe differently. "I watched the humans fight," the commander said. His voice was grave and slow. "I watched them move without the expectation of superiority. They did not assume they would win because they were stronger. They acted as though the battle could be lost. They prepared for failure. They adapted when their plans were wrong. They learned from mistakes in real time and changed their approach." He paused. The council listened. Even the youngest members of the council, the species who had only recently joined the galaxy's governing bodies, listened intently. "My people have been warriors for 10,000 years, the commander continued. "We believe that courage and strength and power are the highest values. We believe that a warrior should never doubt, never fear, never hesitate. To do these things is weakness, but I watched the humans do all of these things. I watched them feel fear and act anyway. I watched them doubt themselves and still move forward. I watched them hesitate to understand a situation and then act decisively." The commander looked directly at Captain Aaron, who stood in the observer section of the council. "What I learned is that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting even when fear is present. Strength is not the absence of doubt. Strength is moving forward even when you are not certain. And power is not the ability to destroy. Power is the ability to create conditions for victory." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives wanted to understand more. Some wanted to dismiss these words as exaggeration. Some wanted to know if humanity was a threat that needed to be monitored. Finally, the ethereal spoke again. "The humans are not a threat, but they are something we do not fully understand. I propose that we invite them to share their knowledge with us. Whatever creates a mind that can think like this, we should study it. We should learn from it." The vote was held. The council unanimously approved a resolution to invite humanity to share its military and tactical knowledge with the other civilizations. They also approved allowing humans to participate in future strategic decisions. But the most important vote came last. The council voted to offer Captain Aaron a position as a strategic advisor to the entire Galactic Council. It was an honor that had been held only by the most ancient and powerful species. It meant that humanity's voice would be heard in decisions that affected the entire galaxy. Captain Aaron was asked to address the council directly. He walked to the center of the chamber. He stood where the had stood, where all the great civilizations of the galaxy had stood. He was a single human being, small compared to the chamber, small compared to the powers arrayed before him. "The galaxy fears humanity," Aaron began. His voice was calm and clear. "I understand why now. You fear us because you do not understand us. You fear us because our way of thinking is different from your ways. You fear us because we do not value the things you value." Lieutenant Gray stood beside him. Aaron continued his speech. "Humans come from Earth, a world that is harsh and difficult. On Earth, survival is not guaranteed. The climate tries to kill us. The animals try to kill us. Other humans sometimes try to kill us. We evolved in an environment where weakness meant death, but we learned something that your species has forgotten or perhaps never learned." Aaron paused and looked at each council member. "We learned that survival does not come from power alone. Survival comes from understanding. It comes from flexibility. It comes from the willingness to change when the situation changes. It comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. It comes from working together with people who are different from us. It comes from never giving up even when victory seems impossible. He pointed to Grace. This officer is smarter than me. She understands people better than I do. I followed her advice today. A leader who is strong enough to admit that others are smarter is stronger than a leader who must always be right. He pointed to the other officers who stood in the chamber. This is a medic who learned new ways to save lives. This is a soldier who understands that protecting supplies is sometimes more important than winning battles. This is a pilot who understands that courage means flying into danger with your eyes open. These are humans. This is what we are. Aaron walked closer to the council members. The galaxy is afraid of humanity because you see something in us that you see in yourselves. You see the will to survive. You see the refusal to accept defeat. You see the ability to adapt and overcome. These are the qualities that made your civilizations great. But these are also the qualities that can make civilizations dangerous if they are not guided by morality and compassion. He stood in the center of the chamber and made his final statement. Humanity offers this galaxy a gift. We offer the gift of understanding that power without wisdom is just destruction. We offer the gift of showing that strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when destruction is necessary and when mercy is better. We offer the gift of a young species that still has much to learn, but learns quickly and learns together. The council chamber fell silent again, but this silence was different. This was the silence of understanding. This was the silence of recognition. The vote was unanimous. Captain Aaron would be the first human strategic advisor to the Galactic Council. His appointment would take effect immediately. Within a year, 3 more humans would be offered positions as advisors and teachers. As Aaron left the council chamber, he saw waiting for him in the corridor. Her eyes were bright. For the first time since the galaxy had rejected humanity, she smiled. "They finally see us," she said. "No," Aaron replied. "They finally understand themselves. That is why they fear us, but fear can become respect, and respect can become partnership." He was right. The Galactic Council would never be the same, because they had learned a truth that would change everything, that true power comes not from age or technology, but from the will to protect others and the wisdom to understand that the right choice is sometimes the hardest choice. 3 months had passed since the battle. 3 months since the Galactic Council had recognized that humanity was more than a young and inexperienced species. The galaxy had changed. Or perhaps the galaxy was finally beginning to see itself clearly. The commander stood at a window looking out at the space where the battle had taken place. He could see nothing now but empty darkness and stars, but he could remember everything. He could remember watching the human ships move with precision, without the arrogance that his own forces had possessed. A human officer approached him. It was Captain Aaron, invited to thee as a guest of honor. The commander turned from the window and faced him. "I have been thinking about what you said in the council chamber," the commander said. "For 10,000 years, my people believed that age gave us wisdom. We believed that our experience made us superior. We believed that any enemy we faced would fall before our power because power was all that mattered." Aaron nodded. He said nothing. He had learned that sometimes silence was more powerful than words. "But watching you fight changed everything," the commander continued. "You fought without the belief that you would win. You prepared for failure. You learned from mistakes as they happened. You adapted moment by moment. You protected your soldiers instead of spending them like currency. You thought about consequences instead of just about victory." The commander extended his hand. It was a gesture of honor among his people, one that was rarely offered to outsiders. "Your species is not a threat to the galaxy," he said, "but you are a threat to the way we have always done things, and that is the best kind of threat there is, because sometimes the old ways are wrong, and sometimes we need young species to show us that there are better ways." Aaron shook his hand. This grip was powerful, but it was controlled. It was the grip of someone offering partnership, not dominance. On Earth, the news of humanity's success spread through every city and town. Schools changed their teaching about space warfare. Instead of teaching students that power determined victory, they taught that understanding determined victory. Young humans began to dream of becoming strategic advisors and military planners instead of just pilots and soldiers. Universities received requests from species across the galaxy. They wanted to send students to learn human ways of thinking. They wanted to understand the philosophy that made humans different. The requests came not just from military forces but from scientists, engineers, and philosophers. Sophia, the chief medic, was teaching a class on human medical techniques at the Galactic Medical Institute. Her students came from a dozen different species. Some of them had bodies very different from human bodies. Some of them came from worlds where medicine worked in completely different ways. But Sophia taught them something that transcended species and biology. She taught them that medicine was not just about fixing broken bodies. It was about understanding that every patient wanted to live, wanted to return to their families, wanted to contribute to their communities. She taught them that the best medicine came from compassion combined with knowledge. Humans come from a world where death was always possible, Sophia told her students. We learned that life is precious. This changes how we approach healing. We do not see a patient as a problem to solve. We see a person who deserves to live, and we work with all our strength to give them that chance. One of her alien students, with compound eyes, asked a question. But if we feel compassion for every patient, will we not become too emotional to make the right medical decisions? Sophia smiled. Humans discovered that compassion does not weaken decisions. Compassion strengthens decisions. When you care about why you are making a choice, you make better choices. When you understand that your decisions affect real people with families and hopes and dreams, you take those decisions more seriously. Daniel, the pilot, was also teaching. He was training the next generation of fighter pilots at the Galactic Military Academy, but he was teaching them something different from what pilots had been taught. They taught you to believe in your superiority, Daniel said to his young pilots. But the best pilots are not the ones who believe they will win. The best pilots are the ones who understand that they might lose, understand that possibility, prepare for it, learn how to win even when you are outnumbered. And he showed them recordings of the battles he had flown. He explained his decisions. He showed them moments where he had almost died and how he had survived through quick thinking rather than superior technology. I was not the strongest pilot in that battle, Daniel explained, but I was the fastest thinker. I understood the enemy's radar patterns. I understood their weapon systems. I understood their weaknesses. That is why I survived. Major Thomas was teaching strategy to military commanders from across the galaxy. He was showing them how humans thought about warfare in ways that older species had forgotten or never considered. Victory is not the same as winning, Thomas explained to a room full of alien commanders. You can have a tactical victory and a strategic loss. You can kill more enemies and still lose the war. True strategy means understanding what you are fighting for and making sure that your actions serve that goal. He showed them the human strategy from the recent battle. He explained how destroying supply lines was more important than destroying ships. He explained how breaking communication was more important than destroying weapons. He showed them how the human mind worked in ways that were fundamentally different. Was offered a permanent position on the Galactic Council. She was no longer the young representative from a junior world. She was an advisor and teacher. She spent her time helping other civilizations understand human philosophy and human ways of thinking. But did not forget where she came from. Every conversation she had, every decision she made, she remembered Earth. She remembered that humanity had been rejected and dismissed. She remembered that humans had responded not with anger but with preparation. One day, she received a message from young humans on Earth who wanted to know what it meant to serve humanity in the galactic government. She replied with a simple message. It means showing them that a young species can teach old species. It means proving that strength comes from wisdom. It means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. It means never forgetting that we are all connected, and what benefits one species can benefit all species. Captain Aaron stood once more in the Galactic Council chamber, but this time he did not stand in the observer section. This time he stood as an equal advisor, a voice that would be heard when the galaxy made its most important decisions. The Council was debating a new conflict in a distant region. The usual voices called for military action, for using force to solve the problem. But now there were other voices. There were humans asking questions about why the conflict existed. There were voices suggesting that understanding the root cause might be better than applying force to the symptoms. For the first time in galactic history, the Council spent hours discussing the conflict not as a problem to destroy, but as a problem to understand. And it worked. By the end of the session, the Council had proposed a solution that involved both military protection and diplomatic understanding. It was a solution that would never have been suggested before. It was a solution that came from both the old ways and the new ways that humans had brought to the galaxy. As the Council adjourned, Aaron caught the eye of the commander. The nodded once, a gesture of recognition between warriors who had learned to respect each other. Aaron left the Council chamber and looked out at the stars. Earth was somewhere out there, still young, still learning, still growing. But now the galaxy knew what humans were. Now the galaxy understood why they had feared this young species. It was not because humans were cruel. It was not because humans wanted to conquer. It was because humans possessed something that older species had lost: the ability to learn, to adapt, to grow. The ability to see new solutions to old problems. The ability to understand that wisdom was more valuable than power, and that mercy was sometimes stronger than weapons. The galaxy did not fear humanity because humans were destroyers. The galaxy feared humanity because humans were builders of a better future. And that kind of species, young and determined and growing stronger with every day, was the kind of species that would change everything. In time, the other civilizations would come to understand this. In time, they would work with humans not because they had to, but because they wanted to. In time, humanity would become not just a member of the galactic community, but a leader. But that was still in the future. For now, Aaron was content to know that humanity had been seen. Humanity had been tested. And humanity had proven that a young species with the right philosophy could change the universe. Somewhere on Earth, a young student was reading about these events. The student wondered if they could be part of this future. Could they become a teacher, a strategist, a leader? Could they help humanity continue this amazing journey? And the answer, in the eyes of all of humanity, was yes. Because humans had learned that the greatest strength was not in old age or ancient technology. It was in the determination to keep learning, keep adapting, and keep protecting those who needed protection. That was the true secret. That was why the galaxy would come to fear and respect humanity more than any species that had come before them.